Hey guys, it's me, Trey, back with another episode of Let's Read the Bible. Today we are in Mark chapter 5, and we're going to go, like we did yesterday, we're going to go right into Mark. We're not going to go to Revelation. The reason I don't want to go to Revelation is not because I'm not reading anything interesting or, relevant. Revelation is a book that I think you don't need to pick pieces out of because it might not make sense to everyone, especially if you're unfamiliar with it. Revelation is straight prophecy, and I don't understand a lot of it still. And when we go through that book, I want to make sure that I am 100% right. I actually will probably use my my Dr. David Jeremiah study Bible to go through that book, because it has a footnote literally for every single verse. So like when it talks about the beast with with eyes all over it, we could see what that means. So, and I don't want to be confusing. That is why we're probably not gonna touch on anything in the book of Revelation. We're probably not gonna touch on anything else other than what we're reading from this point forward until I go into the Old Testament. Then I might pull stuff from there. But I have quite a few chapters left in Revelation. I just started. I think I'm on let me look really quick. I just read chapter 5. And I think there's around 20 or 21, 22 chapters in Revelations. But before we get started in the scripture today, I wanted to say I hope you all have had a great Tuesday. I hope you've had a joy-filled, love-filled, just a great day today. I did yard work today. I weed-eated and I finished mowing the other half of my yard. I had to wake up early for it because it's so daggum hot and humid here. I usually wake up about 6:30, 7 o'clock to mow it. And it takes me about 3 hours, but I got it done. I want to say I got it done in a little over 2 today. But anyway, I hope you all have had a good day. I've had a good day. Any day we wake up, I think it's a good day. Mind you, stuff might happen during the day that can make it kind of go sour, but as long as I'm still living and breathing, and as long as you are still living and breathing, we are blessed beyond what we deserve. If you had an opportunity today to serve someone else, whether it be with your time, money, or labor, I hope you took advantage of that. And I know I say that every single time, and the reason I say that is because it's important. I think it's one of the real main reasons we are, especially for believers, we're put here, is to serve other people, to do things for other people. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, I really mean it. Now, I don't think you're going to have an opportunity. Well, it depends on if you make your own opportunities, but an opportunity to serve can come once a day, can come once a week. It all depends on how often you go out or how many people you're surrounded with that you can help out. So I guess my point is, when those opportunities come, always take advantage of it. For like me, for example, I live out in the middle of the country. I'm not surrounded. My neighbors on the street are amazing and they're lovely, and I've helped them once or twice before, but we don't interact all that much because people work, people, want to come home, eat supper, blah, blah, blah. So we don't really, intersect a lot. But, I don't live in a metropolitan area. So for me, I can't go walk down the road and see 50 different people who may need help doing something, that somebody might spill their groceries, or, need help changing a tire or changing their oil or mowing their grass, whatever. So I don't really get a lot of opportunities unless I make my own opportunities. Or if I'm going out, we go out to go get groceries or whatever. But I always want to say that to remind you that show everyone, regardless of whether they believe in Jesus Christ or not, show them the love of God at every opportunity you can, because that's really what it's all about, loving your neighbor as yourself. And I know I talked about this yesterday on my mini rant. I really feel like we should do more of that, because there's so much just anger and hate in the world. We need to put as much love into the world and to other people, to let them know that people still care about, one another, that it's okay to help someone. It's not like a huge deal to want to just sit and talk, and just sitting there talking with somebody could be servitude. There are people people you see every day. They come from all walks of life. You don't know what's going on in their life. Now, I'm not saying go up to them and tap them on the shoulder and say, tell me what your problems are, because that's not how it is. But if you see somebody who is obviously troubled, reach out to them and say, if everything's okay. It's not weird to do that. And if or at least not where I'm from, it's not. But if it is where you are, I don't know what to tell you. I say go for it anyway. That's what I would do. And if people don't want to talk, then they say, oh no, I'm fine, and just respect that and walk away. But we're going to go right into Mark chapter 5 today. Like I always say, I am not a pastor, a preacher, a nun, a deacon. I'm not trained in any way to teach the Bible. I don't even consider myself a Bible teacher. This is you and me reading the Bible together and learning together. Because like I've said a bunch of times, you could read this book 100 times, and every single time you'll learn something new. You could read it 1,000 times, and I'm sure you'll learn something new every single time. So that being said, if I make a mistake, if I say that a verse or a parable or a cluster of verses means something, but for a fact it means something completely different, I always ask to let me know, because I don't want to put out the wrong information. So let me know, and I will do my best to correct it next time, or I might just go back and revisit it in the next video. But if I make a mistake, let me know. The only thing that I ask in return is just be respectful and keep it PG rated. You never know what people can say on the internet. People are free to say what they want, and I respect that. You can say whatever it is you want, but this is just me trying to extend a request, and just be courteous. I mean, respect other people, So we're going to go into chapter 5. Right off the bat, Jesus heals a demon-possessed man. And like I've said since we started this book, we've read some of these parables before in Matthew, but this is from Mark's perspective. It's going to be a lot of repetitive stuff, but there are things in the books, in the Gospels, that aren't in the other Gospels. Like, for example, I think I mentioned this before, when Jesus is on the cross and the two criminals are next to him. In the book of Matthew, it says that they participated in chanting against him. But in the book of Luke, I believe it is Luke, one of the criminals does chastise Jesus, saying, he basically eggs him on, and the other criminal says something to him in return, and him and Jesus have an exchange, today you will be with me in paradise. And that there are little nuances and differences in them, but the parables are roughly still titled the same. So if it sounds repetitive, it's not meant to be. There, I promise you, there's new material there, things that weren't said in Matthew. So just remember that. All right, here we go. Verse 1, Jesus heals a demon-possessed man. So they arrived at the other side of the lake, in the region of Gerasenes. I think that's how you say that. Wait, I got an asterisk next to mine. Or Gadarenes. Other manuscripts read Gadarenes. Still others read Gergesenes. When Jesus climbed out of the boat, a man possessed by an evil spirit came out from a cemetery to meet him. Verse 3, this man lived among the burial caves and could no longer be restrained, even with a chain. So he had an evil demon inside of him, and chains wouldn't even hold him back. Whenever he was put into chains and shackles, as he often was, he snapped the chains from his wrists and smashed the shackles. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Day and night he wandered around the burial caves and in the hills, howling and cutting himself with sharp stones. Verse 6, when Jesus was still some distance away, the man saw him, and he ran to meet him, and he bowed low before him. With a shriek, he screamed, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, I beg you, don't torture me." So this spirit, obviously speaking from him, recognized Jesus and recognized who he was, and how mighty he was. For Jesus had already said to the spirit, "Come out of the man, you evil spirit." And then Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" And he replied, "My name is Legion, because there are many of us inside this man." Then the evil spirits begged him again and again not to send him to some distant place. I think this is the pig one. There happened to be a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby. "Send us into those pigs," the spirit begged. "Let us enter them." So Jesus gave them permission. The evil spirits came out of the man and entered the pigs. And the entire herd of about 2,000 pigs plunged down deep into the hillside, into the lake, and they drowned. So this man had all these spirits, evil demons inside of him. And Jesus cast them out into a huge herd of pigs, and they drowned. They went off the cliff. Remember, we read this. Actually, you know what? My preachers, their husband and wife at our church, they went to Israel. And I've been to Israel too when I was in the military. I went to Haifa. I had an opportunity to take a trip to Jerusalem and to go through some of these places where Jesus walked. And unfortunately I didn't, because to be perfectly honest, my faith was not as strong as it is right now. And I wasn't really that serious. I was more concerned with going out and shopping and, hanging out. But anyway, I brought up our preachers. Our preachers recently, I'd say about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, they went to Israel, and they actually had a picture of this hillside where these pigs went down into the river. And the river's dry. I think the river's dried up now, but and I just thought that was interesting. I remember them showing us the slideshow during church of where the hillside was actually kind of steep. So if the pigs were going across the hill, they would have got a really rolling head of steam. But anyway, I digress. Verse 14, the herdsmen fled to a nearby town in the surrounding countryside, spreading the news as they ran. People rushed out to see what happened. Verse 15, a crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons. He was sitting there fully clothed and perfectly sane, and they were all afraid. So now that he was sane, they were all afraid because they didn't remember. The Pharisees, or the religious leaders, said because they accused Jesus of being of Satan because he was able to drive out evil spirits. Verse 16, then those who had seen what had happened told the others about the demon-possessed man and the pigs, and the crowd began pleading with Jesus to go away and leave them alone, because they didn't understand. They didn't know who Jesus was. All they heard were probably stories that were passed down among a whole lot of people, and and twisted and butchered and chopped up. It's like that game in kindergarten where you put kids in a circle and you whisper in one ear, and by the time it gets to the last student, it's like something completely different. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. He wanted to go with him. But Jesus said, no, go home to your family and tell them everything the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been. So the man started off to visit 10 towns of that region and began to proclaim the great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone was amazed at what he told them. Jesus heals in response to faith. Verse 21, Jesus got into the boat again, and he went back to the other side of the lake, where a large crowd was gathered around. They were gathered around him on the shore. Then a leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, arrived. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, pleading fervently with him. My little daughter is dying, he said. Please come and lay your hand on her and heal her so she can live. Verse 24, Jesus went with him, and all the people followed, crowding around him. A woman in the crowd who had suffered bleeding for 12 years. Oh, hold on, excuse me, I messed that up. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay for them, but she had only gotten worse. She didn't get any better. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. Remember this? Remember this from Matthew. For she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of this terrible condition. Now, actually, let's pause for a second. Where it says, she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. I can't remember, and I don't want to, let me see if I can find it really quick. I can't remember if that actually is said in the book of Matthew. It might be. Let me just go to it really quick. I know the parable is in it, remember, because her faith heals her. She doesn't even ask Jesus to heal her. She just thinks to herself, she has enough faith that if she can just touch the fringes of his robe, she'll be healed. That's the storm. I think we've already, here it is right here. Yep, it is in there. It's in there. This is Matthew chapter 9. For she thought, if I could just touch his robe, I will be healed. So it is in the book of Matthew that way too. Verse 29. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel it in her body that she was healed. Jesus realized, this is verse 30. Jesus realized at once the healing power had gone out from him. So he felt his healing power leave him, and he turned around in the crowd and he asked, "Who touched my robe?" His disciples said to him, "Look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over." While he was still speaking to her, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use troubling the teacher now." But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just have faith." Faith is such a powerful thing. It's such a powerful tool, I guess you could call it. I don't even really consider it a tool. It's just, you just have it. You either have faith or you don't. And by faith, this is what I mean by faith. Like the woman, the example right here. This woman she'd probably heard about Jesus. She had never met him. She had never talked to him. All she did was have faith that this man is so awesome and he's the Son of God, or maybe she didn't even know that he's a healer and he's a teacher. He's obviously imbued by something powerful. If I could just touch his robe, then that'll heal me. She had that faith without ever uttering a word. And that is the type of faith. She didn't worry about, hey, maybe if I touch his robe and then ask him to heal me, it'll heal me through his robe. Like, a good example right now would be for our time. Everybody is, well, unless you're, born into money or financial blessing, everybody at some point, especially, in the early stages of adulthood, you're gonna run into some type of financial trouble, or I'd say the majority. Some people are just good at money. Like my wife, she is amazing with money. More like, not me, I'm not, but some people are just naturally good at it, but the majority aren't. Majority, impulse spend, that's me. Buy stuff we don't need, that's me. And I shouldn't do it, but I've gotten a little bit better. But anyway, you run into these financial problems and you want relief and you want help and you pray for God to help you. Well, if you pray for God to help you and you say, I'm going to have faith that he's going to help lift this burden from me, and then you go spend $40 on lottery tickets to try to win yourself out of debt, that's not having faith. That is not faith. You're asking God to help you. At the same time, you're trying to fix the problem yourself. That is not faith to me. Faith is saying, you know what? I'm going to just do my best to pay whatever it is I need to pay, and, pull from a hat whoever you're going to pay that month if you can't pay everything, and then learn to not owe so many people money. you know, that faith is that kind of faith will be a journey where you just trust God, you continue to do what you're doing and do your best, and know that everything is going to be okay. And like true faith, like don't try to interfere. Let God, truly turn it over to God. That's what faith to me is. And some people might disagree, some people might agree, some people may have examples of that. I know, you know, I've had faith troubles before where I'll ask God for help and then I just want to solve it myself because it's not going on my own timeline. You know, and that's another thing when we ask for help or for God's will to be done. It's on His timeline. It's not on ours. Again, sorry for the tangent. Boy, I get lost in my thoughts sometimes. Where are we at? Verse 35. No. Verse 36. Jesus overheard them tell Jairus, don't bother with him coming. Your daughter's already dead. But Jesus says, don't be afraid. Just have faith. Verse 37, then Jesus stopped the crowd, and He wouldn't let anyone go with Him except for Peter, James, and John. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion, weeping and wailing. He went inside and He asked, why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead, she's only asleep. The crowd laughed at Him, but He made them all leave, and He took the girl's father and mother and His 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, He said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, get up. Forgive me if I butchered that. And the little girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what happened, and then He told them to give her something to eat. And that is chapter 5. Tomorrow we do chapter 6. Jesus rejected at Nazareth. That is the first section we'll hit tomorrow. I hope you all enjoyed that. And this ran a little bit longer than I figured it would, because chapter 5 is kind of a moderately sized chapter. I'm sorry for the tangents and the you know, going off the topic, you know, chasing the rabbit. But I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a good day tomorrow. And remember, like I said earlier, if you have an opportunity to serve, do it. Take advantage of it, because you don't know how many chances you're going to have. Not only when you serve, you store up treasures in heaven, and God will bless you for it here on earth. And you could take that to the bank. The Word of God says it. You can just be rest assured when it's time for your blessing, and you've earned that blessing, you will get that blessing. So I hope you all have a good night, and I will see y'all tomorrow.